Hello everyone, welcome to the second video in our series in which we try to explain how to build up an Aikido class, share our perspective on building up an Aikido class. In the first one we talked about the warm-up, and we will link it in the description below so you can get back to that video if you haven't seen it yet. And today we want to focus on selecting the techniques for a class. So we might have a long class, 1.5 hours, 2 hours, whatever the duration is. And we might be able to do many techniques during this class. So how to select the right techniques to get some points across to the students, and not just throw any techniques in any order without any specific connection between them. So let's have a look at some points on selecting the techniques.
So how do we choose specific techniques to present in a class that will actually make sense, that will have a flow to it? So we have mentioned in another video that what you do in the warm-up can sometimes reflect what you do in the techniques. So beginning with a warm-up that might include some tai sabaki, some foot movement, that would help people practice to prepare for the technique would be maybe like a good idea. And in that sense, you want to build up a class in a way that starts from something a little bit more basic into something a bit more advanced. So that's one way to do it, is look at more basic techniques that you would offer for the class and build it up to more advanced techniques. Now, you have other options too. You can also present just a specific technique. So for example, Kotegaish, or maybe Riminage, whatever the technique may be, and you can present it from different attacks. So you can work on the same technique. That way your students get a chance to work on the same technique from different attacks. Another way to do it is to work from one attack. So for example, ski, okay, or maybe katate dori. So, and you work with that one attack and you look at the different techniques that you can do from that one attack. And again, you can work up from a very basic technique to a more advanced technique. Now, if you want to change it up a little bit, there are other ways to include different types of techniques. And what you would like to do is to have some sort of common thread between the techniques. And that could be, for example, maybe a common flow of movement, like a two-step that's in between all the techniques. Or it could be maybe a certain principle that works in all the same techniques. Okay? So you want to find some sort of common thread so it doesn't just feel like you're bouncing off, different sides of different techniques, and people get very confused in that way, but that there's some sort of common thread that leads up from something more basic to something more advanced. So let's take a look at some examples. Okay, so let's do a few examples of what we're talking about here. If we're looking at just building up sort of a basic, doing a basic technique and going to a more kind of advanced technique, a good way to do that might be something like Shomenuchi, from Ikkyo, Nikkyo, Sankyo, Yonkyo. Okay, these all kind of begin in the same fashion, the same beginning. If we start in Shomenuchi, so if we do the Omote Waza, for example, then we're going to go do Shomenuchi, Ikkyo, Omote Waza. Okay, and then we can build it up a little bit more, do Shomenuchi, Nikkyo, Omote Waza, do the variations on that, and then Shomenuchi, right, Sankyo, Omote Waza, and then Shomenuchi Yonkyo Omote Waza. Okay? So we can even get into that. Duck. Right? So they all kind of have this beginning similar feel to them, and then you work up to slightly more advanced techniques with that same beginning, starting from a basic Ikkyo. So that helps the students kind of follow the same footwork and things like that. Speaking of that, if we choose a particular technique, so let's say Ikkyo, okay, kind of a basic technique, then we can do this technique. Ikkyo is a nice one because you can do Ikkyo from almost any attack, and we explore how to do Ikkyo from different attacks. So for example, we could start with katate dori, okay, a very basic attack, kihon static, and then we work doing katate dori Ikkyo from here. Right? We may build up to a slightly more dynamic, but still somewhat basic version of Shomenuchi Ikkyo, like what we just mentioned. We might do something a little bit more coordinated with the attack, where we have to do a ski Ikkyo, right? Coming in and doing a ski Ikkyo. And then even something more energetic like a Yokomanuchi Ikkyo, where we've really got to step in, right? And then doing it, with a much more energetic way, which would be slightly more advanced. Now the other side of this would be to pick one particular attack and then look at different techniques from that attack. So let's just choose anything like ski, for example. So when I begin, I might want to begin with maybe ski Ikkyo. So we just showed this one, and it's a nice one to begin with because Ikkyo typically is a basic technique. We could do ski kotegaeshi, working on a different movement from the ski, a different opening. We could even look at ski iriminage, working on irimi entry, and then doing different kind of footwork with the same attack, but finding different techniques. If we look at keeping the same sort of energy flow or movement flow throughout the class, then we can choose techniques that have the same sort of footwork, sort of the same movement throughout the technique. And so what we could do, for example, one technique would be shomanuchi. Actually, let's do this side. Shomanuchi Ikkyo Urawaza. And with that, I'm going to begin with almost like a two-step. 1, 2. So if I worked on two-step at the beginning of the class, then this would make sense. Now, I could also do the same technique by applying a iriminage in a more advanced kind of way, where I move in and doing a 1, 2, okay, kind of a two-step. Okay, and you could build up a class kind of using the same sort of movement flow throughout. Now you could even, work into shiro waza from here. So for example, shiro ryotedori iriminage. So I could still kind of say with the same technique, but also do an shiro version where he would come around and I would do a two-step there. Okay. So these are a couple of different examples, a couple of different ways that you can build up your class. There are other ways as well. And so if you have any other ideas, then leave those comments down below, please. And we're going to leave you with one more bonus on how to work on techniques and how to arrange your techniques in a class. And that would be to pick a particular technique and work on the variations of it. So for example, katate dori kokyunage. So we could look at how to do katate dori kokyunage. We have a kind of a basic version here where we would step in, and this is a little bit more static. We would work in this very static way. Then maybe we could work doing a variation where we turned and do it a slightly different way. Okay? There would be other variations to katate dori kokyunage, stepping in. And then we could even look at more dynamic ways of the very first version that we did. So we're coming in and then just using that same technique and using it in a slightly more dynamic and energetic way. So again, these are just a couple of different ways that you could build up your class. If you can think of some other methods, other ways of building up techniques, please leave us comments again below. Thank you for watching.